Welcome back, everybody. It's Chappelle Orange Chat here, episode 53 Kaiju Profiles. And this week we are talking about kaiju of myth, like dragons and all sorts of other mythical creatures throughout the pantheon of mythology. Dragons, however, are not going to be on here. I do want to say, though, that I have chosen a few different pantheons and chosen a few kaiju or bigger animals that I know of, that I've grown up with and learning about and whatnot, that I found fascinating. Now, before I get started, if you want to support my channel, if you want to help my channel grow, smash that like button, click the subscribe button. It's free to do so. Turn on the notifications because people have been complaining that they haven't been getting notifications. Turn on the bell for all notifications on your PC or whatever. And if you want to do YouTube push notifications, I don't post often, but I do post. So that way you can get notifications from your phone and whatnot. Follow me on X at these two profiles. These are where I am most active. Most active on this one, Orange Hat 2185. I'm also live on X currently at the same profile. I'm trying to reach 2,000 subs. So by the end of the year, if I can get to 2,025 subs by the year 2025, I will do something special for the channel and for all the subscribers and whatnot. So yeah, that's basically where you can find me. You can also find me on criticlist.com, where I give my reviews of movies. It's Orange Hat Reviews or Orange Hat. You can also find me on Instagram under Orange Hat Reviews. I do reel edits. I edit reels and I remix them and whatnot. I don't do much review stuff over there. And that's essentially where you can find me. Usually in my videos, all my links are down in the description, so you can find them all there. And before I go any further, I want to say hello to the chat. Vanya, good to see you. Thank you for joining. And hello to Neozoic. Thank you for coming in. So getting into mythological kaiju or beasts of myth and whatnot. One of my favorite is actually an evil kaiju known as Typhon from Greek myth. Now, a lot of is a lot of visual speculation about what Typhon actually looks like. This is just one art rendering of him online. I kind of like the Percy Jackson story of Percy Jackson and the Olympics or Olympians, where they talk about how Typhon rises up, but he doesn't have a defined form. He's sort of like the storm of swirling energy, but also looks like a different thing every time somebody catches a glimpse of him. So it's kind of interesting how the gods also, it takes the gods, all of them, to try to stop him because Typhon is that dangerous in Greek myth. Zeus had to lock Typhon away into the pits of Tartarus, I believe, he was locked under Mount Vesuvius due to the fact that they couldn't stop him, so they had to he dropped a volcano on him and used the lava to keep him at bay. And I like in Percy Jackson, well, they couldn't keep him under Vesuvius, so they kept him under Mount St. Helens. And when you read the story or that bit in the last book where he's rising out of the volcano, I could visually see that. I could also, I'm a visual reader where if I read something, I can visualize it very clearly. If I have some sort of inkling of what the characters look like or something like that. And in Reardon's books, they are actually well described, And so there was one scene in which this guy was down by the Missouri Arc or the St. Louis Arc or whatever it is, that big old arc thing that's like this. And I like how he describes that everything suddenly went silent and almost cold, and then you see this blast of a lightning bolt hit the storm, and he then says he, or what only could have been, Zeus's master bolt of lightning. And it really is cool how it would take Zeus's greatest weapon to even slow this thing down, because he was making his way to where the gods formed Olympus in the United States, which was above this, which was in New York, above the Empire State Building. But this guy, I'm also writing my own Greek story, kind of have writer's block right now, but this beast would essentially be fighting against my character's or my story's antagonist or protagonist. And it would actually be Zeus who set him free. So when it comes to Typhon, he is the father of all monsters in Greek myth, where Echidna is the mother, Typhon is the father, and he and Echidna get together, and well, you get it from there. A lot of different monsters throughout Greek myth are fathered or are sired by Typhon and Echidna. And so when it does come to mythological kaiju, he is definitely one of the top ones out there. This is a creature you wouldn't want to mess with. Going over to the Norse pantheon, we get Jormungand or Jormungandr, the world serpent. Now, there is several different interpretations of this creature. I like how on Instagram you have some of the Viking profiles showing a head or what looks like a snake's head in the ocean from Google Maps. And it's like, yeah, we see you. Down by North and South America's point or separation point. So I always thought that was interesting. Also, this is a creature that was sent to Midgard. They call it the Midgard serpent. It literally wraps around the earth or the planet. And it is, in fact, a giant. It came to play heavily in the God of War game, which this is a part of, this little overlay that I have up here. And in the second God of War game, I like how they really introduce the character of his son, not Jormungandr's son, but Kratos' son, creating him using or putting a soul of a frost giant inside of Jormungandr, in which Jormungandr would then grow up to become the Midgard serpent. Hello to, yes, my favorite mythology dragons. Or my favorite mythological dragon. Let's see here. I would most likely say Encalagon the Black, as he is the largest dragon in mythology. Or if you want to go into anime mythology and whatnot, you also have the super eternal dragons in the Dragon Ball universe, in which the space eternal dragon is quite large with the Dragon Balls, or with the space Dragon Balls. But you also have Shenron and Purunga. But yes, Encalagon the Black is one of my favorite dragons, or is my favorite dragon, because he literally could crawl over mountains. His wingspan is out there, man. I mean, pretty sure that his wingspan could cover a great deal of Europe if you wanted to. I mean, Encalagon was no small dragon, and he died in the First Age. So, But yeah, continuing with Jormungandr, um, I liked, or I was always fascinated by how a Midgard serpent could be, uh, or how a creature could be that big. Now, some mythologies have him as a more rainbow colored serpent, hence the rainbow bridge and other things, carrying him to Midgard or and other such things. Now, in God of War, obviously they have him more white but opalescent, so he can give off that iridescence or the iridescence, the rainbow scaling off of his scales, which is still nice. And I also like how he speaks and whatnot. I mean, I'm sorry, man. If I ever saw a snake that big, I'm shitting myself where I stand. I don't care. I'm sorry. It's just holy shit. That is a rather large serpent, you know? And I also like watching the God of War game, or God of War 2 game, God of War Ragnarok, rather, where you see Thor fighting the Midgard serpent, where he hits him so hard with Mjolnir that he sends him back in time. And it's like, oh shit, you know? So now there's two Midgard serpents that were, or that are existing, you know? And then it just creates a whole nother thing. Now, a lot of people don't realize this because this next kaiju is used in the Greek pantheon due to movies and whatnot. But from the Kraken from Clash of the Titans is not a Greek kaiju. He is actually a Norse kaiju. And in the movies, he apparently is, or the Kraken is basically large enough to contend with the Titans of the Greek myth, like Kronos and Atlas and all of them. And apparently, this monster defeated the Titans. Well, in actual Norse mythology, the Kraken is no more than just a massively bigger giant squid with a lot more tentacles than the normal. But yes, this thing in the Greek version of the Kraken, which was in Clash of the Titans, was actually quite an interesting, or was quite an interesting behemoth, because this boy looks like he came straight out of Hercules, the Disney story. Sort of. I mean, the way that he actually looks is somewhat, um, is somewhat. Well, I don't not no Hercules isn't the right one, but he definitely looks like he belongs out of something that Disney could make, you know, in a cartoon or in a more cartoony form. But this thing looks like it could also be a real thing, and scarier than hell, because as much as a lot of people bash on the Sam Worthington Clash of the Titans, the scenes in which he is flying around the actual, um, when he is flying around the actual Kraken, you are seeing in the background the slow movement of the Kraken rising. This thing has a lot of bulk to it, and it's or it when it's dropping its tentacles, it's killing people. And then you see how Hades feeds off, or you see that Hades has indeed fed off of it, where he was talking like this, very raspy and whatnot. But as soon as the Kraken starts killing people in Argos, he is a lot stronger, where Zeus is growing weaker because the Kraken is not enticing prayer from the people. It's just straight up killing them, you know, and their fear and pain and their anguish is strengthening Hades instead. But yeah, the Kraken was actually always a Norse myth, not a Greek myth. Now, while the design is very interesting, it is more of a monstrous squid with some differences. Now, another one which isn't a pantheon, or which isn't a pantheon of a country of mythology, but actually came from the mind of a writer, is Cthulhu. I write him in as a kaiju because he is indeed massive. Apparently, according to myth, he is sleeping somewhere off the coasts of Australia in the ancient city of Urlie. And Cthulhu, apparently, simply by waking up will lead to the end of the world, because the psychic emanations he gives off leads to people losing their minds and literally either, no joke, either fornicating to death or becoming extremely violent, in which they go on a murder spree. So I'm not making that up. That is some of what the legends of Cthulhu is, or state would happen. People will either fornicate to death or they will murder people to death. It's just extremely, it's a flip, or it's a toss of what a person's more base desires are: sex or murder, or sex or violence, and which one wins out when the big guy wakes up. Because now, when I was watching the movie Underwater, which the director of that movie actually confirms through an interview with Mr. H Reviews. Shout out to Mr. H. He actually says, well, yes, this character was essentially supposed to be Cthulhu, but we couldn't get the rights to state the name outright. So we had to, or we couldn't exactly call it Cthulhu, not even in production notes or anything like that. But that is basically what they were going for. However, they couldn't explicitly state it. And there is one shot near the end of the movie before the reactor of the underwater base goes up, where you actually see Cthulhu from a distance, and he's trying to escape. And it very much does reminisce, or is very much reminiscent to the design that is, well, this one, so to speak, but also with the devil wings behind him as well. Does Mongolian deathworm count as a mythological or a mythology kaiju or not? Yes, the Mongolian deathworm is actually a mythological kaiju, as is Ajidaka from the Persian myth. Now, Ajidaka, I don't have a overlay like I do with Cthulhu here, but Ajidaka is a very hard to kill creature, where if you slice open any part of Ajidaka, snakes, creepy crawlies from hell, essentially, all of the unclean creepy crawlies come out instead of guts or blood. It literally bleeds serpents, spiders, and insects and arachnids. So Ajidaka is truly a terrifying creature. Any creature that basically is bigger than a building is considered a kaiju, in my opinion. So yes, the Mongolian deathworm is also one because, well, it is rather big for what it is meant to be. You also have Tarask, or Tarask, which is a sort of like a smaller version, or a smaller kaiju, but it's a French demon dog kind of thing. I mean, there are all sorts of different kaiju throughout myth. Specifically, another Persian one, the Rook, or the Rock, or the Roke, which inspired the name of the chess piece, the Rook. Now, this is an eagle. Imagine an eagle with teeth in its beak and a forked tongue that was the size of a jetliner, as big as a jetliner, as this card from Weird and Wild Creatures. I actually collected these cards for later generations. I was actually going to give them away to somebody, but it turns out that it didn't exactly go that way. But these creatures, or these cards, were actually pretty interesting back in the day, and I managed to collect all of them so that I could give them away, or to one of my younger generations, but they never did. But yeah, when it comes to the Roke, this thing, the word Roke is Persian in origin, so it's a Persian myth. And this thing also has a golden egg that is rather large. I believe it was in 1,000 Arabian Nights or something like that. And let me get rid of the comment that I have. There we are. Legendary origin. The Roke is a part of Middle Eastern mythology. It appears several times in the 1001 Nights stories. So yes, the 1001 Nights story is where this thing goes. Now, its huge wings flapped with such power they created winds like a hurricane. When it flew overhead, the skies darkened, and its huge wings were powerful, or could bring, kind of like Rodan, where Rodan from Godzilla mythology was basically an A-bomb with wings, where he flew over, shaking the lands with the wind shear from his wings. And this thing is somewhat the same. It could cause hurricane force winds with flaps of its wings. So yeah, these are creatures that terrify me, folks, because just imagine if these things were real. What would you do? How would you react by seeing such awesome divine creatures? I mean, well, we all obviously know what would happen if we saw this guy, or if he ever woke up under the water, we would all be dead, because our brains would eventually lead us to do horrible things, like violently fornicate to death, or murder people, killing people until you yourself died. The next one is a biblical kaiju. Now, there are two biblical kaiju that I am aware of. There is this one, the Leviathan, which would flood the earth. And then there is the Behemoth, which I don't have a picture of, sadly. And these two are supposed to clash in the Bible. And it is supposed to eventually lead to the end of the world. Now, the Leviathan has been taken into so many different mythologies and uses, like in video games. Favorite Buddhist and or Hinduism mythology, kaiju mythology. The Nagas, the giant Nagas, which are the gate guardians, essentially, where they are or half human, half snake, essentially. Those come to mind when I think of Buddhist kaijus, or Buddhism and Hinduism. The Nagas, definitely. But yes, this boy, essentially Poseidon's demon, the Leviathan. Now, I love the Leviathan from the Final Fantasy VII game, not the remake one, but this one, because it's there. It's like a serpent, and it summons a tidal wave, which is very reminiscent of what its origin is said to do. The origin of the Leviathan is said to create such a massive tidal wave that it engulfs the land, that it drowns people, that it is essentially a check on the population of the unfaithful, or apparently. And I always found that if these sort of things were to ever happen, how would we ever stand against that, I mean, this thing's also supposed to fight another giant kaiju from the Bible called the Behemoth, which was also put in the Monsterverse to look like a mix between a pachyderm and a sloth that's also immune to fire, which is interesting. But yes, just imagine seeing two beasts like that fight, and it tears the world apart due to their sheer size. That's just something that is absolutely mind-boggling to think about. Now, what happened or now what would happen if if all these creatures like Typhon, Jormungand or Jormungandr, the Kraken, Cthulhu, Leviathan, the Roke. What would happen if all of these things went into a battle royale, you know? Well, I could tell you already, humanity's dead due to Cthulhu being awakened, and the rest of the world is either going to be flooded or shook to death or vibrated to death due to the fact that all these creatures woke up and are of such mass that they shake the ground to the point where they break up the planet, essentially. I mean, a kaiju showdown. Whew. Fun fact, Ziz, Behemoth, and Leviathan are Jewish mythology that were inspiration for the 3 legendary Pokemon in Gen 3, Rayquaza, Groudon, and Kyogre. Yep. Leviathan was Kyogre, Groudon was Behemoth, and Ziz was, I believe, Rayquaza. And I actually do like Rayquaza. Rayquaza out of the Gen 3 is my favorite Pokemon. Out of Gen 3. Because I enjoyed the look. I also had a dream when I first saw Rayquaza. I had a dream that he just showed up looking into my apartment back when I was living in central New York. And his big, massive yellow eyes were just looking in my apartment in the dark. And I'm like, oh my God, that is terrifying, you know? So it was rather interesting to see. Now, those are all of the kaiju that I had thought to get pictures of. I mean, there are many mythological kaiju out there, but those are the ones that truly brought merit forward that I thought about. Because yes, the Titans are also essentially kaijus because of how big they were when they existed in the Greek pantheon. But I don't usually go along with these because I will eventually be leaving for family time to see my nephew play soccer. And there's not really much to stretch on this, but I am happy that people definitely tuned in, Neozoic and Vanya, as well as the people on X, the other 3 on X who are watching, as well as the 3rd unvoiced person currently on YouTube. But next week, let's see here. I should flip a coin because it's either Big G or Big K. And I just happen to have a coin here. So, Big G or, yes, Big G, Big K. Next week is Godzilla. So, yes, I will be talking Godzilla, all the stuff, my thoughts on Godzilla and his different iterations, his different looks and whatnot. The stuff that I like personally about Godzilla. So definitely tune in for that. Tonight I will be on the Barroom Podcast where me and Jake are going to go head to head while we all talk about other stuff, but we're also going to be debating Beetlejuice. So apparently Jake doesn't like it, and I did like it. I really enjoyed it. So we're going to get into a little bit of fisticuffs. So yeah, bring it, Jake. Society Reviews, channel 9 p.m. to see that one, folks. Tomorrow night, nothing going on because it's not the final half of the month yet. But next week, Wednesday, 8:30, Jade Shadow's channel, me and her are going to be talking the first X-Men movie. And then the Thursday following that will be the Wolverine Unleashed discussion, where I will be bringing out some some nice little treats for you all. I'm actually moving them right now, so I don't want to spoil what they are. But anyway, folks, you all have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, or day and day. Thank you so much for tuning in, Neozoic, Vanya, and everybody else who watched on X or on YouTube. I'm still trying to get to 2,000 subs, so if you can help, or share my stuff out, that'll help greatly. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Orange Hat. Y'all have a wonderful day, and always remember to stay humble, folks. Peace.
Are you done?